Exactly 75 years to the day Anne Frank went into hiding from the Nazis. She was just 13, and her diary of what happened to her and her family during the Second World War went on to become one of the most famous ever. Someone else who also went into hiding that day was Eva Schloss, a friend of Anne's who later became her stepsister. Eva came in to see me earlier on to talk about Anne and to tell me her own remarkable story. Anne Frank was born in Germany in 1929, but when Hitler came into power, her family fled to Amsterdam in the Netherlands to escape the Nazi persecution of Jews. When the Germans invaded that country, her family hid in a secret annex above her father's office, where they stayed for 2 years and where Anne wrote her now famous diary. In 1944, the family was discovered by the Nazis and taken to concentration camps. Her father, Otto, was the only survivor, and after the war he married again, becoming the stepfather of Eva Schloss. It also meant that Eva became stepsister to her friend who had died. She started by telling me about when she first met Anne.
Well, we met when we came to Amsterdam in February 1940. We were both 11 years old, and we both lived in an apartment, and there was, of course, no garden for children to play, so they all came out to play on these big squares in Plan. And she came to introduce herself. She was well brought up, realized there was a new child there, and not knowing much Dutch yet, she took me up to her apartment, and I met her family. And so every day after school, we played outside, and I had already experience in Austria anti-Semitism, so I was much more shy than she was. She was very outgoing because they left Germany when she was 4, so she was very much at home in Amsterdam, and a bit of a show-off. And I had an older brother, and she only a sister. And when I told her that I had a brother, she asked, when can she come and meet him?
Oh, she was interested in boys.
She was very interested in boys. With 11 already. And because boys came in our house all the time, you know, there was no mystery for me about that. But yeah, and she was very chatty, and she was very interested in her appearance, which I wasn't. I was a real tomboy.
When you were told you'd have to go into hiding by your parents, you didn't quite understand what they meant.
No, but that was 2 years afterwards. So 2 years was occupation, which was difficult for Jewish people, but it was not life-threatening in the beginning. But then slowly the measures became more difficult, and people disappeared, people were arrested, and you never heard of them anymore. And then in July 1942, many young people, including Anne's sister and my brother, got a call-up notice to be ready in a few days to be deported to Germany.
Were you aware at the time that she was documenting all of this in her diary?
No, because she only got her diary, well, a few weeks before, on her 13th birthday in 12th of June. And she didn't write too much yet then. That really only came when she went into hiding, and that was what she recorded everything.
But having known her like you did, you knew she had the character to do something exceptional.
Well, she liked writing, I knew that. She was known of telling stories and things like that. So, of course, after the war, when I realized what she had done, I wasn't surprised. But, of course, what she wrote was a mystery. Nobody knew that. Even her father, after he read it, said, I didn't even know my own child. Because she, you know, she became really very much mature in those 2 years where she was in hiding.
And we've jumped to your experience after the war, but your own experience through the war was very, very difficult because you ended up with your family in Auschwitz.
Well, we were in hiding as well for 2 years. And after 2 years, we were betrayed by a Dutch nurse.
She was working for the Gestapo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, you never knew people which sides they were on, and that was, of course, a danger. But anyways, that is what happened, and It was happened to be on my 15th birthday, on 11th of May, and that was on a Tuesday, and on Friday we were already taken on transport to the east. Of course, the Germans never told you where you were going, what's going on. So there was a chance that you would go to a work camp, labor camp, because they did need people to work in their factories. But there were as well the many, many death camps in Germany and Poland. So we didn't know what was going to happen.
When you arrived at Auschwitz,
Then we knew.
You knew what it was?
We knew. Because where we were in hiding, so you were not allowed to listen to foreign radio, only to Dutch and German. But the people who were hiding always listened to the BBC. And the BBC was really wonderful, gave a broadcast to all the occupied countries in their own language. And that is something I remember very, very clearly. At 9 o'clock, it was a Dutch broadcast, and we were glued to there was a little Bakelite radio hidden in a cupboard so that neighbors wouldn't hear. And it started with da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. That is the BBC from London. And by 44, they told already, you know, an invasion was soon happening, and the Germans were losing the war, and you should not give up hope, and so on. But for us, it was really too late, because big in the cattle truck, we thought, well, that's the end of our lives.
Because you survived, and your mother survived, but your father and your brother sadly didn't.
Yeah, and I mean, we were, and that was our luck. Auschwitz was liberated by the Russians in January 1945. I could not have made it till the end.
No.
Like Anna, she was as well in Auschwitz because they were betrayed in August, so after us. And there was actually the last transport from Amsterdam, from Holland going to Auschwitz. And the Frank family was on that to Auschwitz. And then she was taken from Auschwitz to Bergen-Belsen, which was liberated only in end of April by the British. And so she had to survive another 4 months.
Yes.
I wouldn't have made that. So I stayed behind in Auschwitz and was liberated by the Russians, and that saved my mother's and my life. And my father and brother went with the Germans, probably had to, and were taken to Mauthausen, Austria, death camp, and perished there.
And what's remarkable after the war, Eva, is that Otto Frank became your stepfather because he married your mother. And so you later became Anne's stepsister, even though she wasn't around anymore.
Yeah. Well, that changed my life, it changed my mother's life. And Otto was really quite an amazing person. You know, he was a bit elderly, he married a bit late, so he was in the 50s already when he came back. And he lost really everything. And very often my mother and me, this man, how can he carry on with his life? He has nothing. You know, at that age, you wouldn't start a new family. And I was full of hatred, not just against the Germans, but the whole world. Because when I realized that, you know, America, Australia, Canada could have taken in many, many more refugees. And that was the problem. They didn't want any people.
And I'd like to bring it right up to date, if I can, just to finish.
This is why I don't stop talking, because it's a parallel again, what is happening now.
Because do you still consider yourself a refugee, even though you've been here for such a long time?
No, I wouldn't say I'm a refugee now, but I remember very, very well when I was a refugee and how difficult it was and how you were made unwelcome and you didn't know the language and you had nothing, you were poor. And you were not accepted anywhere, you know? It was really, really tough.
So how do you feel these days when you see the situation with refugees coming from places like Syria and Libya and making desperate attempts to leave those countries?
Well, they have to leave because they have nowhere to live. Their town and their apartment is disappeared. And, you know, they have children, they want to young people who want to make a life for themselves and for their families. So it's understandable they're looking for a better place. But I saw some time ago a program here in a theater. There were 10 Syrian women who were talking. They were in Jordan, refugees in Jordan. And they say they would love to go back to their own country. But, you know, if it's still wars, they can't. So this is really what I'm advocating. Make peace. You can't carry on destroying whole countries. You know, they have to sort things out. They have to give in one side or another, and so that people can have a life. I mean, those people don't want to leave their own country. I was very happy in Austria.
And I think, given your experiences, Eva, people will hear that and hopefully, well, I'm sure will agree with you. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you very much.